Hi, my name is Ginny, also known as Two-Thirds Lotus, and this clip is part of my series analyzing the Essential Bukowski, edited by Abel DeBrito. Nothing has been edited out, so you're seeing this exactly as it was streamed on Twitch, with all the imperfections and tangents of a live stream. If you want to learn more or catch me live, make sure to check out the description, otherwise enjoy the incredible work of Charles Bukowski. Oh, this looks good. And the next I remembered I'm on a table. Everybody's gone. The head of bravery under light, scowling, flailing me down, and then some toad stood there smoking a cigar. Kid, you're no fighter, he told me. And I got up and knocked him over a chair. And it was like a scene in a movie, and he stayed there just on his big rump and said over and over, "Jesus, Jesus, what's the matter with you?" And I got up and dressed, the tape still on my hands, and when I got home, I tore the tape off my hands and wrote my first poem, and I've been fighting ever since. That's beautiful. Oh my gosh, that's so cute. Oh my gosh. I was not ready. I've never read this poem. Freaking Bukowski. Sometimes he can write something happy and it's... Ugh. Freaking awesome. That's so wholesome. Wrote my first poem and I've been fighting ever since. Talk about a banger line. Okay, I'm gonna read this again because it also has like the fun dialogue in it. The Loser by Charles Bukowski. And the next I remembered I'm on a table. Everybody's gone. The head of bravery under light, scowling, flailing me down. And then some toad stood there, smoking a cigar. Kid, you're no fighter, he told me. And I got up and knocked him over a chair. It was like the scene from a movie, and he stayed there on his big rump and said over and over, "Jesus, Jesus, what's the matter with you?" And I got up and dressed, the tape still on my hands. And when I got home, I tore the tape off my hands and wrote my first poem. And I've been fighting ever since. We could write a tweet like, "Get in a fight, write a poem." Now we're here. Or got in a fight, wrote a poem. Now we're here. I do like it. It's good. Oh. I mean, it's so... I have to head off to class. See ya. Maybe we can catch up more soon. Yeah, absolutely. Have a good one. Enjoy class. So, I mean, the poem is so simple and so straightforward. And sometimes you just need to tell a story and add 3 lines on the end and or add 2 lines on the end and have it be the most amazing thing ever. And maybe some people would see this and be like, "Oh, that's kind of simple and boring," but we do have to remember this is Bukowski we're talking about, right? And I think in a vacuum, this poem is not that great, right? Or not that interesting, because it's just like I got in a fight and then I wrote a poem. Okay, but this is Charles Bukowski. And he talks so much about the struggle that he has in writing, in poetry, in being an artist, in doing this thing that he loves. So then to hear this very like almost heartfelt story in the form of a poem is like much more impactful. And I think I really need to give like the biggest like, shout out, I guess, to whoever made this Essential Bukowski book, because the way this is set up, the way this feels like it takes us through the work of Bukowski is extremely well organized. He starts off, the very start, the first poem. Simple is not bad, yeah. Friendly advice to a lot of young men and a lot of old men too. And his first thing is, but don't write more poetry. He gives us this really cynical, kind of vulgar poem at the start that is just like setting up the Bukowski self-contradiction, the way that we see he simultaneously doesn't believe in himself but loves his art and invites us to look at him and judge him for that in his poetry. And then the Sparrow, talking about his daughter, and then the Layover, and Life of Borodin, and Hugo Wolf went mad, and Destroying Beauty, and The Day I Kicked a Bankroll Out the Window. All about how he's this, like, miserable, starving, tortured artist. And then, the twins, talking about his father, heartfelt. And then the whore who took my poems, once again, sort of tortured artist. And then we go into the loser, and I think that's a really excellent, like, setup for this poetry collection. If you put this back to back with the twins, I think it would be much less of an impactful poem, because this is this very, like, heartfelt, my dad died, I'm sad, like, actually kind of nice Bukowski poem. And then if we just said, oh, here's another one, it might feel like the loser's a little cheapened. But whoever put much time into this book, I think very clearly put a ton of care and thought into how they wanted to organize this, and I just want to appreciate that. Sometimes it's not always our poetry that does all the work. You know, as artists, our existence is not just to make art. This is not the life of an artist. Making art and nothing else. Right? We also present our art and market and share and need to show our art in beautiful ways, not just have beautiful art that we're showing and dumping into a book, right? And to me, so far, everything about the organization of this book just demonstrates the utmost care. Utmost care and consideration for the work of Bukowski. And it's funny, I talked about this earlier on stream, that's what I wanted to write a poem about at the start of stream that I didn't finish, was caring for the work of others as artists. And sometimes it's hard to notice. It's really hard to notice because we pick up the Essential Bukowski, a book about Bukowski. That's what this is. And we forget that this is selected and edited by Abel de Brito, right? And it takes so much care to put together someone else's work. I'm sure Abel is someone who has read Bukowski in the same way that I am reading Bukowski here on stream, really trying to dig into the work. And, I mean, I think he is like a specifically Fulbright scholar, wrote biography of Charles Bukowski, editor of the Bukowski collections, like someone who clearly puts a lot of care into this. And honestly, he's someone who I would freaking love to talk to, right? Maybe I should try to like reach out. Here's a thought. I know we're not talking too much about Bukowski himself right now, but what I just said, maybe I should reach out to Abel de Brito and find this person and ask them about this and tell them that I appreciate their collection, because I do. And this is something that a lot of people don't maybe realize, is that reaching out to someone and saying, hey, can I talk to you? How are you? You're an inspiration. Like, tell me more, is really, really freaking easy in this era. If I go on like my iPad here or my computer, let me get it to my face. You aren't going to be able to see this. But if I look up this person who wrote this book, who collected this book, Abel de Brito, unless he's dead, but I think he's alive. He looks pretty alive. And then I go to abeldebrito.com, and then I hit contact. Like, I could absolutely say, like, hey, your work is beautiful. Here's some of the things that I noticed in the Essential Bukowski. I'm reading it as a project. It's a lot of fun. We do it on Twitch. It's like this sort of new modern thing. And like, you can reach out to these people who feel unattainable, and oftentimes, like, first of all, probably make their day. Because, like we've been saying, having someone listen to your work in that regard is really important. And I don't know, maybe Abel would really appreciate some random girl from the internet reaching out and saying, I really appreciated the specific, what I see as intentional way that you put together the Essential Bukowski. I sometimes forget that people exist beyond their work, and I can just reach out to them. I know! And there are so many incredible living authors and scholars and poets and musicians, and especially, like, let's say you have a musician you really like, and you think you're all hip because, you know, this musician has 200 followers, or 200, let's say, monthly listeners on Spotify. Absolute, like, nobody. I have a musician that I really like, who I'm thinking about, who's just like this. And I reached out to him on Instagram, and I said, hey, I love your new album. Like, can I ask you, is this inspired by this? Like, what's your inspiration of the album? Because it sounded almost like it was based on, like, some literary references. I thought it sounded a lot like stories from Gabriel Garcia Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude. Turns out it wasn't, and he's like, well, no, actually, but it's based on another book. And I'm sure it was pretty cool to have someone reach out, right? I wonder if that person wrote that dog hair poem is still alive. If they are, you might go look for them. What is that dog hair poem? I'm not sure I'm familiar. If you want to give me more context as to what the dog hair poem is. Is this something we've talked about on stream that I'm just like dumb and forgot about? Wait, I just typed dog hair into Google. It's not helpful. Dog hair poem. Like The Dog Hair by Lydia Davis. The dog is gone. We miss him when the doorbell rings. Somehow the hair of your dog is still around even after it's gone. Yeah, so that looks like it's maybe by Lydia Davis. So if I look up Lydia Davis, yeah, she's super alive, and she's 77, and she was influenced by Marcel Proust, Gustave Flaubert, Franz Kafka, James Joyce, Nabokov. Wait, and Melville? I should read this lady. Those are like all my inspirations. Well, not really, but like Kafka, Nabokov. I haven't read Joyce. She lives in Massachusetts. Can you give me your name in chat? Yeah, yeah, totally. I'll put her, if she has a website, I'll put it too. I'll try to find it. I will find it for you. I would love to facilitate. Lydia Davis is her name. I do recognize the name. I think she's fairly prominent. She looks like she is. She looks very published. And I mean, literally, this is her. She's on Twitter? No, she's not on Twitter. That's a different Lydia Davis, I think. But yeah, like, this is something you can do, and this is something that is really, really good to do, because as you all have seen in our... She might not have socials with how old she is. Yeah, it's looking like it might be a little tricky to find contact information. But one thing is with scholars, sometimes they are connected to a university and they'll have an email through there because they'll teach. That's possible. There's a Lydia Davis who is not her, who's on Instagram. But dig around, and if you can't find one, then I don't know. That's where you just, well, then maybe, you know, that's the kind of person who, if they impacted you, you follow, and maybe you look out for if they're doing a reading or a book signing near you, and that's where you can go meet them. Or sometimes you can send people letters. Old people especially like when you do that. I send letters to my friends who are like, we're 20 and it's fun. All of these are possibilities. Sometimes you need to work a little bit to find it, but it is definitely an option, and definitely something I think more people should be doing as budding artists, people who find yourself someone who inspires you and talk to them. And don't go in hoping to get something. I mean, be thankful their work affected you, but those are the kinds of people who can end up being your mentors and your inspirations. And they send a letter back, you send a letter back to their letter back, and now you have a correspondence. And then now you're talking to someone who's an inspiration to you directly. And in the case of like poetry and literature, a lot of the people who are really renowned are old, and that means they're dying soon enough, of course, as another generation steps in to become like the new old guard. But why not, right? And what if you send a letter and they don't respond, or it gets lost in the mail and they don't get it? You never know, but the only opportunity cost there is, I don't know, postage and some paper and some time. Or if it's an email, there is zero opportunity cost to reaching out online to the people who inspire you. So I absolutely encourage people to do that. And I'm not sure I would want to do it yet, specifically if I'm reaching out to Abel de Brito. I personally would like to be able to talk more about their work because I'm 14 pages into the 200-page Essential Bukowski. Like, there's a lot more of their work for me to appreciate. I wouldn't try to tell someone I love the organization of a book I haven't finished. And of course that means going through and analyzing Bukowski. But if we want to tie it back to the poem we read, The Loser, I wrote my first poem, and I've been fighting ever since, right? there are some things that inspire us. You're no fighter. There are these moments that of inspiration, and we have a choice at that kind of beginning, that genesis. You can write Bukowski being no fighter, but fighting anyway in this sense, was probably inspired by that line, I think that's what this is saying, to then go fight in a way that mattered to him, writing poetry. And in a similar vein, sometimes a person is a point of inspiration. And sometimes reaching out to them can be a really great thing for you. Sometimes they don't respond, that's fine. But that can let you be fighting ever since, as Bukowski would say, right? I don't know. It's just a thought. So back to the poem. So I already just made that connection. You're no fighter. And then I basically punched him, knocked him over. And then I wrote my poem, and I've been fighting ever since. Right? I've been fighting ever since. This says that everything up here is not fighting. Not fighting in the way that matters, maybe. And this guy, who he admittedly knocked over after he told him this, was that inspiration, right? And I think this is a really interesting, story, because sometimes we are faced with things that are true. The truth, perhaps. That this isn't a kid who should be spending his time fighting in bars, or maybe this is some fight club type thing, I don't know. And some guy tells him, this old looking toad with a cigar, why should I listen to this guy? He tells me I'm not a fighter. I knock him over because he's telling me a hard truth. But then, of course, Bukowski realizes, dang, I'm not a fighter. And so in a sense, this poem is also about, hard truths, and the way that when faced with them, we can make a decision. We can keep engaging in that, which initially Bukowski does, because Bukowski's great at contradicting himself, and then he turns and tears the tape off his hands, and gives it up, and listens to the truth. And of course we know that he made the right decision here. And sometimes that truth comes from people who are wiser than us. Bukowski remembers this guy. He wrote a poem about this guy. He influenced him, which in a sense makes this person a mentor. And there's no one better to give you the hard truths, to show you the things you don't want to believe, to make you want to punch them over than a good mentor. Sometimes it's a teacher or a professor. In some sense, I might be somewhat of a mentor, right? To some people in my chat. Which is terrifying. Freaking terrifying. I hope I'm not. And they're the people who can show you the things you don't understand. And mentors are super important, and I feel like it's something that isn't acknowledged very much in the art world, especially when you're at school. Currently, academia and things like that will kind of tell you, go to college, go to art school, and it's going to teach you what you need to know, and then you can be an artist. It is extraordinarily deeply individualistic, that mindset, that you can do things yourself as an artist. Like, you're really like, well, I can do things myself, I'm independent, but no. As an artist, you're nothing on your own. The point of art is communication. Bukowski needed this guy to give him a hard truth, and as a mentor, and Bukowski probably had other mentors and inspirations, and that can even just be the people you read. Bukowski is, in a sense, through his writing, somewhat of a mentor to me. Same with now Abel DeBrito, since I've noticed something he's taught me. But also having real physical mentors you can talk to is super important. And admittedly, I don't have one. I have had mentors. I had a couple teachers when I was in college for a year who shaped the way I think about the world and write and the things I care about. But I don't talk to them anymore. And having a mentor, having someone to guide you, is super, super important as an artist. So if that means reaching out and just trying to say, hey, what was her name? Lydia Davis. This poem, it inspired me. But right, they don't want to necessarily hear just that either. I don't want to hear people say, hey, your poem is great. And that's all. Right? You know, if I'm reaching out to Abel DeBrito, which I'm going to do, I'm going to reach out and be able to tell him every single thing I freaking love about the way he's organized the Essential Bukowski. There's also an ad starting soon. So I'm going to stand up and finish the conversation after the ad. But also reach out to these people in earnest, listening and caring about their work, because that is what they want to hear. That's what every artist wants to hear. So yeah, care for yourselves. Stand up and take a little breaky break. Nico is in chat. Have you been here the whole time, or have you gone for a while? We're obviously talking about Bukowski. You're so sad, but hey, you're back. Yeah. That's alright. Ad break is still happening, it looks like, but you can hear me, Nico, and I'm talking to you directly. Yeah, I mean, this will go on the Bukowski video playlist. That is the other thing on my YouTube, right? We're mostly not actually talking about Bukowski as much as we're talking about, mentorship and what it means to be supported in your art and grow and reach out to the people who, videos on demand content. Welcome back. I'm still Jenny, still known as 2/3 Lotus. I think your ad is over. I hope you didn't watch it. I hope you walked away, stood up, and actually cared for yourself, as opposed to subjecting yourself to the commercialization of your time. That being said, we're talking about nice, wholesome things, not like ads. Bukowski. So what we were saying, Turn Devil. I'm not sure I ever had a mentor. I have people to look up to, but I've never talked to them. Yeah. and find one. I don't know if you're going to keep writing and if poetry is something you're now passionate about. Yeah, don't zone out when you get an ad. Stand up and drink some water. Every time. For me. I don't know if poetry is something that you are going to have become this passion since you're new at it. And honestly, you don't necessarily need a mentor until you know you're established in something enough that you are worth their time. No one wants a mentee who is not gonna write anything because they're just not committed. I had a saxophone teacher, my first saxophone teacher, not my first, actually my third, who my saxophone teacher here in Las Vegas, she originally wanted to kick me out of lessons of her studio because I didn't really care. And it's not inspiring as an artist to teach someone who doesn't do that. You don't even draw that much anymore, and art is your thing. Yeah, it's hard. Your thing can become not your thing very quickly. For 3.5 or 4 years, it was music was my existence. I just wanted to play the saxophone and be the best saxophonist, and then that stopped because I burnt myself out. And, maybe some of that was a mentor who pushed me to burn myself out. I don't know. You thought you were going to be an accountant, and then, oops. Fair enough. But yeah, I think my biggest point is you're a performer, a poet, a writer. Awesome. That's kind of what I am too, right? Or a Twitch streamer. Who knows? And doing art since I was 2 years old. Can I not have this up? Doing art since I was 2 years old. Took a year-long break at 17. I guess I'm burnt out again. Yeah. And that's, hard. It's really hard to burn out on a thing you love. And the beautiful thing about art is it's all transferable. We were talking about essays today, and talking about poetry, and we were talking about music a little bit. And those are things that transfer as skills to each other. Poetry is expressing the world. Art, drawing, is expressing the world. Music is expressing the world through a medium other than our senses. A replication, a exaggeration, or whatever. Right? So, to do any one of those things is going to help you at all of them, because you are working on the broader skill of expressing the world through artistic means. Doing poetry will make you a better painter. Painting will make you a better musician. Playing music will make you a better dancer. And dancing definitely will make you a better poet. Dancing's the most important one. It's so fun. Putting a blanket on. I'm cold in Las Vegas in the heat, but it's because the AC is on and my sister likes it cold up here, and I don't really bother to fight back on that one. So yeah. Do all the art. I mean, Bukowski, since we're kind of talking about Bukowski. I wish it was cold right now, it's so hot. Oh no, it's not, it is 87 Fahrenheit outside my house. Which is just funny that I look like this. But in the last poem, Bukowski talked about his poems, but also his paintings, right? And paintings too, my best ones. Because that is the thing. I've been getting a mega weird feeling about capitalizing and making profits from art, be it a poet for pay. Yeah, I have mega weird feelings about that too. And that's why I do Twitch, because it means I don't necessarily have to sell my art right now. It means I can make money off of sharing and talking about art without capitalizing my own work, which I love. And sometimes I'll write on stream because it's fun, and sometimes that's what I need to do during the stream time for myself, like mentally. But I don't want to sell my poems. If I make prints of, let's say, Miserere, my big calligraphy poem, I don't want to sell it. Or if I do sell it, I want it to be like, all prices listed are suggested donations. Where if I had 50 copies of it and the suggested donation for like a signed, numbered, printed, hand calligraphy piece of art would be like, for a print like that would be like $100. If someone didn't have that, take it. If you're gonna put this on your wall and love it, and it's going to be worth more than $100 in your life because you're going to love it and care for it and have it be a beautiful piece of art, why would I keep that from you? Right? Why would I keep that from you? That's horrible. I want people to access art. That's why I do this on Twitch. Anyone can submit their work to me and I will look at it. You know? And that's like a difficult thing. And I'm worried as my channel grows, it gets more difficult to manage the submissions. And I'm never going to say the only way to submit is like if you're a subscriber. Of course, there might be a thing that's like, you know, with if it's enough people, you need to redeem channel points to like have your art be the one that I read at the moment, because at a certain point the audience might just get too big. And yeah, maybe if you're subscribed, I don't know, like there's part of me that's like, yeah, a subscriber should like it would be a way to make money and say like the subscriber could cut the line and be the priority, but I don't want the people who pay me to have priority over the people who maybe like cannot. I don't know. Honestly, as much as I hate capitalism, we are still living under it. And that's the issue, right? Because I acknowledge that too. And that's why Twitch is the way that I have decided to make money and survive under capitalism as an artist, right? So, and it depends, right? Because I can't just spend money to make art and then not get something back from it. But if Twitch is like consistent income, then I can be more economically stupid with my other art and give it to people for free. So, I don't know. It's hard, right? My ears perk up when I hear about art grants. I also don't want to be be tortured like Charles here. And exactly. Yeah, art grants are cool. Super sick. It is cool how there's a lot of support, not a lot, but some support from government or organizations to like support artists. I think really what we need to bring back, if I'm being quite honest, is rich people being patrons of the arts. I mean, we had like the Medici family, right, in Venice, like funding Michelangelo, and because of that, the Renaissance, we had like massive basilicas and paintings and stuff, right? So why don't we get rich people to be patrons of the arts and fund like, you know, the new modern Renaissance, you know? I want a weird rich person to be my patron without doing too much creative control. Exactly. Some of them want to be artists themselves. Right. So, I don't know. Maybe we can make it our, like, agenda as a stream to, like, get big enough that I can yell at rich people and show them, be enough of a presence in the world that I can Bring back the idea of rich people being patrons of the arts. That's the goal. That's the societal change I want to make in my life, right? Bring back art patrons. Y'all think we can make that happen in this century? We're gonna try. So, I guess all of this is sort of underneath the Bukowski poem that we're talking about, because, I mean, at the end, so, okay, Nico, I'm gonna read this for you again. This poem's amazing, especially given, like, where it's placed in this book and what the book has told me about Bukowski, because now, the loser. And the next I remembered, I'm on a table. Everybody's gone. The head of bravery under light, scowling, flailing me down. And then some toad stood there, smoking a cigar. Kid, you're no fighter, he told me. And I got up and knocked him over a chair. It was like a scene in a movie, and he just stayed there on his big rump and said over and over, Jesus, Jesus, what's the matter with you? And I got up and dressed. The tape still on my hands, and when I got home, I tore the tape off my hands and wrote my first poem. And I've been fighting ever since. It's so good. This might be my favorite Bukowski poem. But I also was saying, if this was the first one in the book, it wouldn't have meant as much to me, because I didn't understand until like a few poems in, like Bukowski's relationship with his art and fighting and the torturedness of Bukowski. But there's also a sense here that, you know, being an artist, you know, it's fighting. Partially because it's a struggle to be an artist, and you're Bukowski, and we're all Bukowskis struggling in the world of capitalism. But also, you know, art is a place where you fight for the things you believe in, right? And I feel like Nico, like the sentiment about the sort of dissonance of selling art as this like oxymoronic thing is pretty common. Bukowski talks about it too. Like, he talks about the difference between art and like being capitalist and having money, and I think that's why he is a tortured artist. He doesn't want his art to do the money thing, right? So, and so many artists believe more in like the beauty of the art than the money that it makes. And that's why we're all these nonsensical idealists that like capitalism kind of hates, and we don't have a place, and artists have had to settle, like make their place in a capitalist world. That takes different forms. That takes the form of commissions that maybe don't inspire the artist, or they take the form of having a job and then being an artist on the side, or in like my case, social media and Twitch, and trying to make that my income. Sorry about the dogs barking. So there's so much in that statement. Wrote my first poem, and I've been fighting ever since. Right? He's realized the truth. He can't fight through just punching people, through knocking guys over in a bar. He fights through his poetry. Also, he fights because of his poetry. Because it's hard. Isn't that mindset why people hate modern art so much? Because it's completely based in capitalism. Do you mean to say, like, the sort of post-war art that's really, like, commentating on capitalism and about that, or more so modern art that people don't understand and sells for a lot, because like gallery art is a whole thing with elitism and artists and stuff like that, and it can be really hard to understand. Splotches of paint that mean nothing. Well, I think the issue is that that's kind of not quite the whole story with modern art. Oh, and in this one poetry group chat, someone said, if I was unemployed or irresponsible, I'd come to the event. Right, yeah. So, abstract art, splotches of paint, contemporary avant-garde, there's no... Some of it probably has no meaning. I mean, I write poetry with no meaning. Like, I write something that's abstract and the words are cool and it looks kind of cool and it sounds kind of cool, but it doesn't really mean anything to me. Maybe that's what the painter is doing. And people can read that poetry and place meaning in it and appreciate that. And that's still art. It's just a different way to do it. And I have the mindset, everything is art to some extent, but also I see why people dislike modern art. Yeah, modern art's really hard. It's really challenging, because modern art kind of asks us to see the art in everything. Right? And it's hard to see the art in things that don't look like art. I think modern art, or not even modern art, because there's modern art that's very like realist, but abstract art is demanding and it's difficult, and some of it is commentary and some of it's performance art, duct taping a banana to a wall. That's the kind of stuff that, like, the self-referential commentary elitist gallery art is kind of an interesting thing, but I like the modern abstract art that has a story behind it. Yeah. But also, so one of my favorite local artists in Las Vegas, she runs a gallery called Fresh Arts, and she does abstract art. And I was asking her about her process, and she's like, yeah, I really care about color and just how something looks visually. And I will choose a color and start and put on music and paint whatever wants to be painted in that moment. It's not about meaning. It's not about anything. And I freaking adore her little gallery and her art. And it's amazing. And it's splotches of paint on canvas. And I can also put my own self into those splotches of paint. So it's kind of hard. It's definitely easy to dislike modern art. So I definitely encourage people to try not to, maybe. I don't know if I have much more to say about The Loser specifically. We haven't talked about it that much, but sometimes all art needs to be is something to inspire a conversation. We've done that. You like boxing? Sometimes art just like inspires a conversation. Drowning Devil, your poem inspired a few great conversations, and we only really talked about the actual words a little bit. So, I don't know what else to say, right? Yeah, like, it's a simple poem. There's not too much to dig into, but at the same time, you know, we were talking about mentorship and money and how we grow as artists, and this is Bukowski talking about the start of himself as an artist. And Drowning Devil, you're kind of in the place of being at your start as an artist. So these are the kind of conversations that are important to have. I know I don't need a BFA or an MFA. The connections are nice, sure, but poetry is in the streets. I mean, yeah. That's why poets live on the street. Bukowski, my beloved. The true dissonance in life is poetry being of the streets, but not wanting to live in the street yourself. My poetry is of Twitch. Poetry is in the tunnels of Las Vegas. Yeah, it's what Bukowski said. The real Charles Bukowski. I saw this post on X the other day. He said, he tweeted, just got back from a poem reading in the Het City of Las Vegas tunnels. Now nursing a debilitating hangover. Feels like a hatchet in my head. Like, I thought he was dead, but apparently he's still alive and kicking and doing poetry readings in the tunnels, strong as ever. So, yeah. It's gonna be difficult to like edit down this last part and figure out what part of all of this last hour I actually want to put onto the playlist, the Bukowski playlist, because to be quite honest, I haven't said that much about the poem and I don't really want to. The poem speaks for itself in a lot of ways, and I'm not doing more analysis today. Thanks for listening to me and my thoughts on Bukowski. Make sure to check out the rest of the series if you enjoyed, and follow or stop by Twitch if you want to see more. See you there.